How's it going? Well, welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance of one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below and I'll either answer that question right in the comment itself, make a dedicated video, or answer it in a future video just like this one. Now, if you've asked a question and I haven't answered it yet, I'm either working on it or I simply miss it depending on what application I'm using. Sometimes it'll show up on one or not the other. I'll try to get to both of them, but sometimes, it does become a little bit overwhelming. So I don't want to miss any questions. Again, if you ask a question, I haven't gotten to it, just ask it once again so like that I don't miss anything. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week. And it is, should you be paying a diagnostic fee if your car is still under warranty? So the simple answer is going to be yes. So at our dealership, we charge $165. That'll cover up to 1 hour of diagnostic time. So after that, we may come to you and ask you for more time if it's something that's not covered by Honda in the form of a defect. So, a lot of people, they get their cars, they come in, there's an issue, whether it be a check engine light, a noise, whatever. Most of the times it will be covered and we just get that diagnostic fee in the event that it is not covered. Let me explain. So if you come in, there's some rodent damage, that's not going to be a defect from Honda's perspective. So that is something that we're going to have to charge you for, unfortunately. Now, people ask, well, why doesn't just Honda apply rodent tape from the beginning? And I'm not sure on that answer, unfortunately, but Honda at least does offer a solution. Most manufacturers don't have any type of rodent tape or anything to kind of combat that. And soy-based wiring is pretty, normal in today's industry. So most cars are going to have this. Some cars will be affected more than others, but it is what it is. Other times we get a lot of people, usually after it rains a lot, come in with the check engine light and it'll be water in a catch can. Again, not something that was caused by a defective part. There's water intrusion by you driving over deeper water. So if we send back that canister with water, Honda's going to straight up deny the claim and the dealership's going to have to pay for that part at that point. So a lot of times we see issues with, customers being in accidents and they'll say, well, I wasn't in an accident. The car was hit when it was parked. And guess what? That classifies as an accident. So in that case, it would also be covered or not covered as well. And you would have to pay for it or get your insurance involved at that point for them to cover whatever is going on, the broken piece, maybe a noise with a wheel bearing, whatever the case may be. So that's just some of the situations we see. Now, if you come in and we find out that, let's say your multi-purpose camera has a faulty error in it, and there's no sort of impact anywhere, any shape or form, then at that point, it's just going to be covered and we're going to put a new one in for free and you get your diagnostic feedback or you never pay for it because we don't take any money up front. So you just not be, liable to paying anything at that point and the repair will be absolutely free. So that's just some of the scenarios. That's why we get a diagnostic fee up front. If we bring in these cars without a diagnostic fee, a lot of times people are just going to take the car and the mechanic themselves won't get paid at all if it's not covered under warranty at that point. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so the next question is changing a brake fluid. Does the clutch fluid get changed at the same time? So a lot of these newer cars that are manual share the same reservoir and the clutch fluid will just piggyback off of the main reservoir, which is goes directly to the master cylinder. So unfortunately, if we do just a brake fluid, it'll take all the fluid out of the reservoir. The way I do it is I suck up the fluid in the reservoir, put in fresh fluid and suck up the fluid. That way, like that, you're not sucking through all that old fluid anyways. Now, anything on the clutch fluid line would still be there and would be the old fluid. So at that point, I usually get an extra like half an hour or something along those lines to drain that fluid as well and would be the best case scenario. But in most chances, if you're just getting a brake fluid flush done and your car is manual, then they're not going to go ahead and just, bleed out the clutch fluid as well. At that point, they'll just do the brake fluid. So even though they share the reservoir, anything in the line post-reservoir is going to remain in that line for the clutch fluid. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so next question is, what are some pros and cons of a smaller and bigger wheels? So smaller or lighter wheels can obviously help the car kind of move a little bit easier. And I covered this in a fuel economy video a couple weeks back. So those would be some of the pros for the small diameter wheels. They usually come with less weight and you just get a little bit better of fuel economy with those wheels. Probably nothing that you're going to notice, directly, but in theory, it should affect that. Now, it could reduce some drivability, so it could impact performance as far as handling, braking, stuff like that. So if the wheel's a little bit narrower, then obviously not as much contact is the tires reaching the road as your previous size. So that's something you may want to consider. So as far as going a bigger route, so obviously bigger wheels going to take more effort for the car to move and will be a negative impact on that, although it could increase some stability, drivability, performance, and that aspect. So one thing to consider is some of these cars may or may not be affected as far as the speedometer reading at that point, depending on what type of system the car uses. Although, just something to consider, if you go up or to a size, your speedometer may be off a little bit, and just something you want to consider. That'll also affect the total mileage the car is reading versus what it should be reading naturally. So if you keep different size wheels on there for a prolonged period of time, that's something you may want to consider. So I hope it answers the question for you. So the next question is Honda coolant flush. Should you just be draining and filling the radiator back up, or can you actually remove most of the coolant out of the engine? And the answer is you can. Most of these blocks, or all of them I should say, have a drain there for the coolant. A lot of them are pretty hard to access. So this particular vehicle, I think, was he was asking of a 10th generation Civic, and that's going to be under the coolant pipe next to the downpipe. So most cases it can be very hot and very hard to get to. If you drain the radiator itself, most cases it does get a lot of the fluid out. I'm going to say maybe 70% or so, but whatever's in the block and or the heater core may stay in there. So I don't really recommend a flushing type of system with a machine, because especially with older vehicles, sometimes the plastics are brittle already and may cause more headaches than you need to. So if you're changing the fluid pretty frequently, I'm going to say like every 3 years to 5 years, 45 to 60,000 miles, you should be okay. Shouldn't be building any residue or anything like that. And more importantly, using OEM Honda fluid. Now, if you want to take the extra step, depending on your engine, you're going to have to find that drain and drain it, obviously, and replace the plug afterwards, or install it back in, and allow enough coolant to be in there. So you would probably need at that point 2 gallons of coolant. Usually if we do a radiator flush, some will come out of the block, but it'll probably be right around a gallon or so, depending on the vehicle. So again, no right answer here. You could do it either way. Personally, we just do the radiator. We take out the drain and we put it back in and fill it that way. That's just the way we do it. We stay away from flushes with machines because, once again, especially with older vehicles, it could cause more issues than it's worth it. So hopefully it answers the question for you. All right, and last but not least, question of the week. And again, if you want a chance of one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. And the question is, this person was doing, I believe, a transmission service, or maybe it was a front diff service, whatever the case may be. We'll call it a drivetrain service. So trans, rear diff, front diff. He was draining it and he found some metal fragments on the magnet. So most of these diffs will have, or transmissions will have, a magnet on it to pick up small shavings from clutches and stuff like that. So if you check out the drain plug and you see small stuff, just looks like dirt maybe collected on the magnet, that is pretty normal. That's just clutch material, and that is more than normal. Now, if you take out the drain plug and there's big chunks of metal in there, chances are there's something obviously wrong with the transmission, the diff, or the front diff, whatever the case may be. Now, if you take it out and you have big chunks of metal, chances are you've noticed some sort of noise, drivability issues, or something like that. If you haven't, then this is your warning to say, hey, all right, something's going on here. I either need to A, prepare, or B, prepare to get yourself into another vehicle. So unfortunately, sometimes this does happen when you go do a job and you go and find something, right? So if there's nothing going on at that point, nothing that was obvious, that's obviously not something you want to hear, or nothing you want to tell your customer either, although it is a fair warning that something bigger is going on, and you probably should be considering a solution or moving from that vehicle at that point. So if you have no lights and and it's been driving okay and you want to continue driving it, again, that's probably okay. But at some point, wherever that piece of metal came from is A, gonna deteriorate some more, and B, possibly get jammed somewhere, and then definitely cause you some other issues, leading to possibly the vehicle not driving at all or making a ton of noise. So with that being said, hopefully I answered the question for you, and I'll catch everyone on the next one.